Canadian Bulldog from Wrestling Merchandise and Memories. That's merchandiseandmemories.com. And today, we're looking at 10 memorable moments from Beyond the Mat. Just before we get started, wanted to remind you that Wrestling Merchandise and Memories has more than 100 unique and conversation-starting top 50 lists on its site. Check it out at bit.ly/top 50 lists. The late 1999 theatrical release of Beyond the Mat was a game changer for the wrestling industry. Sure, there have been other looks behind the curtain of the squared circle, some before this release and many after it, but none managed to drive as much heart, as much storytelling, and as much intrigue as this one did. Having watched the documentary at least 100 times since its release, having committed many of the scenes and lines to memory, we decided to look back at 10 memorable moments from Beyond the Mat. I don't know why I like it, I just always have. This opening really set the stage for me and showed that this wasn't going to be a typical gotcha wrestling documentary, but rather someone who really wanted to take a fresh look at the genre for mainstream audiences. And to his credit, Barry Blaustein did just that, creating a documentary for the ages. To this day though, I'm not entirely sure why they used Ahmed Johnson's theme song for the opening, so random. He's gonna puke. Vince McMahon doesn't come off looking great during most of his appearances in Beyond the Mat, and we know now that's just scratching the surface. But especially in his opening scene where he arrogantly and loudly gulps down a bottle of water and tells Blaustein that we make movies. But his worst moment, arguably, in this film is when he asks new WWF signee Darren Drozdov to puke on command, commentating as though it's an episode of Saturday Night's Main Event. Jim Ross and Shane McMahon have to watch as Droz blows chunks and Vinnie Mac howls in delight. Not that our product isn't Major League, you can't tell our fans that, you can't tell our wrestlers that. One of the most interesting stories in Beyond the Mat is sleazy indie promoter Roland Alexander, whose students Tony Jones and Mike Modest received WWF tryouts. But before that, Alexander greets potential student Ben, not Bugsy, Siegel, and tries to get $500 out of the kid to begin his training. Ben's friend keeps rolling his eyes, almost as though to signify this training school isn't all it's cracked up to be. Forever! 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 One of the most endearing characters in Beyond the Mat is Terry Funk, the grandfatherly character who's being forced to hang up his boots at a 1997 show in Amarillo, though he wouldn't retire officially for another 20 years. At the beginning and end of Funk's segment, we see archived footage of a bloody Funker shouting into the microphone. Because you have all made it to the dance, because believe me, this is the dance. There's nothing quite like a Paul Heyman speech, and the first time the general public saw one was in Beyond the Mat. Here, right before ECW's very first pay-per-view, Heyman rallies the troops, including Terry Funk, Shane Douglas, Perry Saturn, and the Blue Meanie, with a rousing battle cry to ensure everyone is ready for the night ahead. I could be mayor here if I wanted to be. The most heartbreaking story in Beyond the Mat was that of Jake the Snake Roberts, who showed multiple signs of living a rough life and having a very fractured family. But while competing at an independent show, the Snake revels in his popularity in this small town. A look at his highs before we get to see his lows. I do. This may not make everyone's highlight list, but there's something to behold about a horribly bloody Spike Dudley talking about his life as a teacher. When asked to recite some Shakespeare, the runt of the Dudleyville litter has trouble quoting much more than the line, I do. I think he'll be the best friend. I think he'll be Denzel's pal. I don't think he'll be Denzel. We're shown the amazing life of New Jack in Beyond the Mat, a man who boasts 4 justifiable homicides. New Jack is taken to an LA casting director for an audition where he's assessed for his great face, sexuality, and charm. As far as I know, he was never cast in a film as the best friend of Denzel Washington. I'm not booked. As part of the ongoing Terry Funk story, we're introduced to Dennis Stamp, an aging competitor who's refusing to show up to the Terry Funk retirement show because he hasn't been booked. If there were memes back in 1999, Stamp would have definitely been all over social media. In the end, Stamp gets to referee the Terry Funk versus Bret Hart match, and oddly enough, Stamp wrestled Hart in the Hitman's very first match. So he ended up getting booked after all. Close your eyes! Throughout Beyond the Mat, Mick Foley is shown as a sympathetic, lovable babyface who just happens to take insane bumps, but above all else is a great father to his kids. Yet, in the middle of his brutal I Quit match with The Rock at the Royal Rumble, Foley's wife carries her screaming kids away from ringside. Ironically, both kids, Dewey and Noel, would later work with WWE in different capacities. What were your most memorable moments from Beyond the Mat? Are there any big ones we missed? Let us know in the comment section below. Be sure to thumbs up and like this video and subscribe to Wrestling Merchandise and Memories for much more great content.